The wealthy CEO snarled, "Get rid of it or lose your family." 4 years later, his new wife hired me, not knowing I had his child. The ultrasound photo slipped from my trembling hands and landed face up on the conference table. My new client, Felicity Shaw, the elegant woman who had just hired me to design her dream shelter project, stared at it, then at me, then at the little boy playing with toy cars in the corner of my office. Her face went absolutely white. "How old is your son?" she asked, her voice strange and hollow. Before I could answer, her phone rang. The name flashing on the screen made my heart stop. Trenton, my son's father, her husband, the man who 4 years ago had looked me in the eyes and said, "If you have that baby, I will destroy everyone you love." Felicity picked up the phone with shaking hands. "I need you to answer a question," she said into the receiver, "and I need the truth. 4 years ago, were you having an affair?" I could hear his voice through the speaker, cautious and cold. "That's ancient history, Felicity. Was she pregnant?" Felicity's eyes never left my face. The pause stretched forever. "It was handled," he finally said. "She took care of it. It's not relevant to our marriage." Felicity's laugh was bitter and broken. "Her name is Paige, isn't it? And she didn't take care of it. She had your son. He's 4 years old. He's sitting in this office right now." The silence on the other end was deafening. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how we got to this moment, how two women connected by one man's cruelty became unlikely allies, how a secret, 4 years buried, suddenly detonated in a conference room on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, I need to take you back. Back to the night my entire world shattered. Back to when I learned that the man I loved valued his business empire more than our child's life. Back to the moment I had to choose between my baby and my family's survival. If you've ever been forced to make an impossible choice, if you've ever had someone you trusted threaten everything you hold dear, if you've ever had to disappear completely to protect the people you love, then you'll understand what came next. And if this story grabs your heart the way it grabbed mine, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, because I promise you, this journey will stay with you long after it ends. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose between love and survival? I read every single one. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Trenton Shaw's penthouse office. Like the universe itself was weeping for what was about to be destroyed. I stood in the center of that massive room, my hands trembling against the silk of my dress, feeling the weight of the secret I had carried for 3 months pressing against my ribs like a stone. The city stretched below us, 40 stories of glittering lights that seemed to mock the darkness consuming the space between us. I had rehearsed this moment countless times. Imagined his face softening when I told him about the baby. Pictured his arms pulling me close the way they had on all those stolen nights when he whispered my name like a prayer against my throat. We had been together for 6 months. 6 months of secret meetings and promises that his engagement to Felicity Ashworth was just business strategy, that he was only marrying her for the venture capital her family controlled, that what we had was real and worth fighting for. I had believed him. God help me, I'd believed every word. "Paige," Trenton said from behind his mahogany desk, and his voice held none of the warmth I had memorized during our time together. "You said this was urgent. I have a meeting with the board in 20 minutes. I'm pregnant." The words came out quieter than I intended, but they landed in that office like a bomb. Trenton's jaw tightened. His eyes, those dark eyes that had looked at me with such tenderness just weeks ago, went cold and calculating. The expression I'd seen him use on rival executives before crushing their careers. The man who had traced poetry onto my skin with his fingertips vanished, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. "How far along?" he asked, his tone clinical. 12 weeks. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I needed to be sure. I needed to figure out how to say it." Trenton stood and moved to the window, his back to me. The silence stretched so long I thought I might suffocate. When he finally turned around, he wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me, like I was a problem requiring immediate solution rather than the woman he'd claimed to love. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a checkbook. The sound of his pen scratching across paper was the only noise in that vast office. Then he tore the check free and slid it across the polished wood toward me. $75,000, he said flatly. "That should more than cover the procedure and give you enough to relocate comfortably if you want. I've already made calls to a private clinic. They're discreet. You can have an appointment as early as tomorrow. Nobody needs to know this happened. I stared at the check, at the amount printed in stark black numbers that might as well have been a price tag on my dignity, on our child's life. My hands went numb. I can't do that, I whispered. Trent, this is our baby. Our child deserves to exist. I thought you'd want to figure this out together. His expression hardened into something that looked like barely controlled rage. Figure this out? Paige, I'm getting married in 6 weeks. Married to Felicity Ashworth, whose family controls the venture capital funding I need to take my company public. Do you understand what's at stake here? He moved around the desk with predatory grace, crowding into my space until I could smell his expensive cologne, the scent I used to find comforting. This IPO represents 5 years of work, billions of dollars in valuation, thousands of jobs, my entire future. And our baby represents a human life, I said, hating how my voice shook. A child who deserves a chance to live regardless of your business plans. Don't be naive. Trenton's tone shifted to something darker, something that made my skin crawl. You're not thinking clearly. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment. I'm thinking clearly enough to know I can't terminate this pregnancy just because it's inconvenient for you. His hand shot out and gripped my arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to frighten. Inconvenient? This isn't about inconvenience. This is about survival. Mine and yours. If this becomes public, if anyone discovers what happened between us, Felicity's family will pull their support. The merger I've been negotiating for 2 years will collapse. Everything I've built will be vulnerable to the takeover I've been fighting. He released my arm and stepped back, his voice dropping to something more dangerous than anger. Something cold and methodical. Your father's construction company just secured that municipal contract, didn't it? The one for the new convention center downtown? My blood went cold. What does my father have to do with this? I know the city council members who approved that deal. Trenton's eyes never left mine. I play golf with 3 of them. One conversation from me about potential safety violations or financial irregularities, and that contract disappears. Your father loses everything he's built over 30 years. You wouldn't. But even as I said it, I knew he would. Your younger sister, Kelsey, she just got accepted to Stanford Medical School, didn't she? Full scholarship based on recommendations from donors I personally know. He let that sink in. Scholarships can be revoked, Paige. Acceptances can be reconsidered. One phone call questioning her qualifications, suggesting perhaps the scholarship should go to someone more deserving. You're threatening my family. Disbelief mixed with horror choking me. You're actually threatening the people I love because I won't abort our child? I'm explaining the consequences of a poor decision. Trenton returned to his desk, sitting down like we were discussing quarterly projections. You have options here, and I'm offering you the generous one. Take the money. Handle this quietly. Move somewhere new if that makes it easier. Start fresh. You're 26 years old, Paige. Your whole life is ahead of you. You could finish your graduate degree, travel, build whatever career you want. He leaned forward, his expression almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. But if you have this baby, you'll be a single mother struggling to survive while I'm married to someone else, while I'm building my empire. Is that really what you want? Raising a child alone while watching me create a family with Felicity, while your own family suffers because of your stubbornness? I felt something crack inside my chest. A clean break that would never heal properly, no matter how much time passed. This is who you really are, I said quietly. Everything else was a lie. Trenton's face revealed nothing. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I make the calls. Your father's contract ends. Your sister's scholarship disappears. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. I looked at him for a long moment, memorizing the planes of his face, the cold, calculation in his eyes, the complete absence of the man I thought I knew. Then I picked up the check with shaking hands. Okay, I said, my voice hollow. I'll handle it. The relief that flooded his expression made bile rise in my throat. Good. That's the smart choice. He stood and moved toward me, and for a horrifying moment, I thought he might try to embrace me. I can help you through this, Paige. Financially, logistically. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Don't touch me. The words came out sharper than I intended. Don't ever touch me again. Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or just annoyance at my tone. I'm sorry it has to be this way. I wish circumstances were different. Circumstances aren't different. I clutched the check against my chest. You are exactly who you choose to be. And you chose this. I walked toward the door, my legs somehow carrying me even though I felt disconnected from my body. Behind me, I heard him sit back down, heard papers rustling as he returned to work like he hadn't just destroyed my entire world. Paige. His voice stopped me at the threshold. This is for the best. You'll see that eventually. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. Into the elevator that carried me down through 40 floors of his glass tower. Through the lobby where security guards nodded at me. Like everything was normal. Out into rain that felt too cold against my flushed skin. I made it 3 blocks before I had to lean against a building, before the sobs came in great. Gasping waves that left me doubled over on a street corner while strangers hurried past. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Dinner tonight? Your father wants to celebrate Kelsey's acceptance. We're so proud of both our girls. I sank down onto the wet concrete, my back against cold brick, and pressed my hand to my still flat stomach. I'm so sorry, I whispered to the child Trenton wanted erased. I'm so sorry your father is a monster, but I promise you this, I will protect you. I will keep you safe, even if it costs me everything. I went home to my small apartment and began the methodical process of erasing my life. I pulled suitcases from my closet and started packing with mechanical efficiency, my hands moving without conscious thought, folding clothes into neat squares, wrapping a few precious photographs in newspaper, taking apart the life I'd built piece by careful piece. I booked a bus ticket using my credit card, knowing I'd max it out but not caring. The destination didn't matter. I just needed to be somewhere Trenton couldn't find me, somewhere far, enough away that he'd have no reason to follow through on his threats. My mother would be confused. My father would demand explanations. Kelsey would be hurt by my sudden absence. But I couldn't tell them the truth without putting them at risk. Couldn't say, the CEO I fell in love with got me pregnant and threatened to destroy your lives if I don't disappear. They would want to fight. My father would confront Trenton, and Trenton would make good on every promise. So, I would have to lie to the people I loved most, have to let them think I was having some kind of breakdown, that I needed space to figure myself out, have to let them worry and wonder rather than know the truth. I sat at my small kitchen table at 3 a.m. and wrote 4 letters. One to my parents, vague and apologetic. I need time away. I'm struggling with things I can't explain. Please don't look for me. I love you. One to Kelsey, telling her how proud I was, how she should enjoy Stanford, how this wasn't about her. One to my graduate advisor, withdrawing from the program with bullshit excuses about personal circumstances. One to my best friend Sarah, asking her not to hate me for disappearing. Every word was a lie wrapped around the truth I couldn't tell. At dawn, I took one last look at my apartment, the place where I'd believed my life was heading somewhere meaningful, where I dreamed about a future that included Trenton and love and possibility. Then I picked up my 2 suitcases and walked away from everything I'd known. The bus station was nearly empty at 6 a.m. I bought my ticket to Westport, Oregon with cash, using my grandmother's maiden name. Paige Brennan was staying behind. Paige Cross was getting on that bus. The engine rumbled to life beneath me. Through the rain-streaked window, I watched my city disappear. Somewhere in those buildings, Trenton Shaw was probably already at work, relieved that his problem had been solved, that I'd taken his blood money and removed myself from his perfect life. He had no idea that I was keeping our baby, that I was running not to get an abortion in private, but to build a life where his threats couldn't reach, that the money he'd given me to end a pregnancy was going to help me survive it instead. I pressed my hand to my stomach and made a silent promise. I will give you everything I have. I will work until my hands bleed. I will sacrifice everything except you. And someday, when you're old enough to understand, I'll tell you that you were wanted, that I chose you over everything else, that you were worth it. The bus carried me west through rain that never seemed to stop, through small towns and forgettable landscapes, toward a coast I'd never seen and a future I couldn't imagine. I had $8,000 in savings, $75,000 in blood money, and a baby growing inside me. I had no plan, no support system, no idea how I was going to survive. But I was free. Free from Trenton Shaw's threats and manipulation. Free from his cruel ultimatums. Free to build something he couldn't control or destroy. I didn't know then that freedom would cost more than I could imagine. That the next 4 years would break me down and rebuild me into someone stronger and harder and completely unrecognizable. That I would give birth alone and raise my son in the shadows and claw my way from poverty to power through sheer stubborn will. I didn't know that the universe had its own sense of justice, that someday, in ways I couldn't predict, the past would catch up to all of us. That the wife Trenton chose over me would become my most unexpected ally. That the secret I'd buried would surface at exactly the right moment to change everything. All I knew in that moment, watching the rain, feeling the first flutter of morning sickness, was that I had made my choice. And I would live with it, whatever came next. The bus pulled into Westport, Oregon 36 hours later. I stepped off into a city that existed in permanent gray, a coastal town where rain and fog blurred the edges of everything, making it the perfect place to disappear. The air smelled like salt and fish and rain-soaked wood. Everything looked old and tired and forgettable. Perfect. I found a boarding house through a flyer at the bus station. The address led me to a 3-story Victorian that had seen better days, paint peeling, porch sagging slightly. I knocked on the door and waited, my suitcases heavy in my hands. The woman who answered was in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back in a bun and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. "You hear about the room?" "Yes, ma'am." My voice came out rougher than I intended, exhausted from travel and tears. "Name's Ruth. Rent's $400 a month, first and last up front. No drugs, no overnight guests, no loud music after 10. She looked me up and down. "You running from something or someone?" I hesitated. The truth felt dangerous, but this woman's directness demanded honesty. Something, not someone dangerous, just a situation I needed to escape. Ruth nodded like she'd heard it before. "I don't need details, girl. But I need to know you can pay rent and won't bring trouble to my door." "I can pay." I pulled out cash, counting out $800. "And I won't bring trouble. I just need a quiet place to figure out my life." She took the money and handed me a key. "Top floor, room on the left. Bathroom shared with the room across the hall, but that one's empty right now. Kitchen privileges if you clean up after yourself." She paused. "What should I call you?" "Paige. Paige Cross. Welcome, Paige Cross." Ruth's expression softened slightly. "Whatever you're running from, I hope you find some peace here." The room was small and cold, with a single window overlooking an alley, and furniture that looked like it had survived several decades. But it was clean and safe and mine. I set down my suitcases and sat on the narrow bed, feeling the full weight of my isolation settle over me like a blanket. I had done it. I had disappeared completely. Trenton would assume I'd gotten the abortion and moved away. My family would worry, but eventually accept my distance. Nobody in the city knew me or cared about my history. I was utterly, completely alone. And I was 12 weeks pregnant. That first week, I walked Westport streets learning the geography of my new life. The gray stretched everywhere, rain falling in endless curtains, the ocean visible between buildings like a gray promise. I found a free clinic operating out of a church basement and signed up for prenatal care under my new name. The volunteer nurse who examined me was kind and practical, not asking questions I couldn't answer. "You're measuring right on schedule," she told me. "Do you have support? Family? The baby's father?" I shook my head. "Just me." She squeezed my hand. "We'll make sure you have what you need. Come every other week. We'll get you vitamins and monitor your progress." That kindness from a stranger made me cry. She handed me tissues and didn't comment on the tears. I found work at a 24-hour diner called The Lighthouse. The owner was a gruff man named Joe, who looked at my lack of references and visible desperation and hired me anyway. Night shift, 10 to 6. Tips are yours, minimum wage plus whatever people leave. Show up on time and work hard. We won't have problems. The work was exhausting. My feet ached after 8-hour shifts. My back protested the constant movement. Morning sickness hit at random times, forcing me to run to the bathroom between tables. But I smiled at truckers and insomniacs and people more lost than me. I learned to move efficiently, to anticipate needs, to maximize tips by being friendly without being invasive. I saved every dollar that didn't go to rent or food, bought maternity clothes from thrift stores, ate free meals during my shift at the diner, walked everywhere to save bus fare, built a small nest of savings that grew dollar by careful dollar. My pregnancy progressed in secret isolation. At 20 weeks, the volunteer nurse asked if I wanted to know the baby's sex. "Yes," I whispered, tears already forming. because this moment should have involved someone holding my hand. It's a boy. She smiled. A healthy baby boy. I cried in that church basement, mourning everything my son would never have. A father who wanted him, grandparents who could spoil him, a mother who wasn't terrified and alone, but also promising him that I would give him everything I had, that he would know he was loved and wanted and worth every sacrifice. I named him in my mind that day. Cameron. It meant Crooked River, and it felt right. Our path to each other had been crooked and painful, but we'd arrived. Winter turned to spring. My belly grew. I worked until my feet swelled and my back screamed. Saved money in a coffee can hidden in my room. Prepared as best I could for a birth I would face alone. Ruth noticed, of course. Hard to hide pregnancy from a landlady who saw you every day. She confronted me one evening as I climbed the stairs, breathless from the effort. You planning to have that baby here? I don't have anywhere else. I braced for eviction. Instead, Ruth's expression softened. I had a daughter once. Lost her to cancer when she was 23. Never got to meet my grandchildren. You let me help with this baby, and we'll call it even. I'm not sure what you mean. I'll watch him when you work. Help you figure out what you need. Make sure you're not doing this completely alone. She shook her head. No woman should birth a baby by herself. I don't have money to pay you. Didn't ask for money. Asked to love a baby who needs someone. Different things. Her kindness broke something open in my chest. Why would you do that for a stranger? Because someone should have done it for my daughter. Ruth's eyes were wet. And because I can. Cameron entered the world on a rainy March morning. Labor started at 2 a.m. with contractions that took my breath. Ruth drove me to Westport General in her ancient station wagon, holding my hand through contractions while I tried not to scream. 14 hours later, they placed him on my chest. He was small and red and perfect, his eyes squeezed shut, his tiny fists waving. He looked like Trenton. The resemblance was undeniable, heartbreaking, real. Hello, Cameron, I whispered. I'm your mama. I love you so much. He made a small sound, not quite a cry, and my heart cracked open in ways I didn't know possible. This was love. This overwhelming, terrifying, absolute love that made everything else seem small. What's his name for the birth certificate? The nurse asked. Cameron Cross. No mention of his father. No connection to the man who had wanted him erased. The first year of Cameron's life nearly destroyed me. I returned to work when he was 6 weeks old, bringing him with me because I couldn't afford childcare. Ruth watched him during my shifts, refusing payment, falling in love with my son the way she'd promised. I survived on 3 hours of sleep, learned to function in a fog of exhaustion, mastered the art of nursing while half asleep, became an expert at stretching dollars until they screamed. My entire life narrowed to work and Cameron, to making enough money to keep us fed and housed. But there were moments of pure joy too. Cameron's first smile, directed at me in our small room. His laugh when I made silly faces. The weight of him sleeping on my chest. The way he looked at me like I was his entire world. Because the first was, and he was mine. Cameron's first birthday arrived with spring rain and a small cupcake I couldn't afford but bought anyway. Ruth brought a gift, a stuffed dinosaur she'd found at a thrift store. We sang happy birthday in my tiny room while Cameron smeared frosting everywhere. You've done good, girl. Ruth watched him with soft eyes. He's healthy and happy. That's everything. I don't know how much longer I can do this, I admitted. Working nights, barely sleeping, always one emergency away from losing everything. You're stronger than you think, but you're also too smart to be waitressing forever. You need to find something better. I don't have a degree. I don't have references. I have a baby and a fake name and a past I can't explain. Then you find someone who doesn't care about those things. Someone who sees potential instead of problems. That conversation echoed in my mind during my shift that night. I moved through the diner on autopilot, refilling coffee and taking orders, wondering if Ruth was right, wondering if there was a way out of this endless exhaustion. A man sat at the counter around 2 a.m., 70-something, expensively dressed, out of place in our tired diner. He ordered coffee and sat watching me work with sharp, assessing eyes. After an hour, he finally spoke. You're wasted here. I looked up from wiping the counter. Excuse me? I've been watching you manage 3 difficult tables, diffuse an argument between drunk customers, and reorganize the kitchen workflow, all while maintaining perfect courtesy. He sipped his coffee. You're smart and capable and clearly educated, despite working a graveyard shift. What are you doing here? Paying my bills like everyone else? I kept my tone neutral, wary of strange men in diners at 2 a.m. My name is Wallace Merrick. He slid a business card across the counter. I own a commercial real estate development firm. I'm looking for an executive assistant, someone organized, discreet, intelligent enough to manage complex logistics. The position pays $60,000 a year plus benefits. I stared at the card. Why would you offer a job to a waitress you just met? Because I built my company from nothing 40 years ago. Wallace's eyes were kind. I know what desperation looks like, and I know what potential looks like. You have both. The question is whether you're brave enough to take a chance. I have a son, I heard myself say. He's 1 year old. I'd need to bring him to work sometimes, at least until I can afford childcare. Bring him. My office could use some life in it. He stood, leaving a $50 bill for his $5 coffee. Call me Monday morning, or don't. But either way, stop wasting your potential serving coffee to people who don't appreciate it. He walked out into the rain, leaving me holding his card like a lifeline. Monday morning, I called. By Monday afternoon, I had the job. Working for Wallace Merrick changed everything. The steady paycheck meant I could afford actual childcare, could move Cameron and myself into a small apartment with our own bathroom, could buy groceries without calculating every penny. But more than the money, Wallace offered something I didn't know I needed. Mentorship. He taught me commercial real estate from the ground up, how to evaluate properties, analyze market trends, negotiate contracts. He let me sit in on meetings, asked my opinion, treated my ideas with respect. He saw potential where I'd only seen survival. You're quick, Paige. He reviewed a market analysis I'd prepared. You see patterns others miss. Have you considered finishing your degree? I can't afford it. I have Cameron to think about. There are night programs, online courses. Wallace pulled up websites on his computer. You start small, one class at a time. I'll adjust your schedule to accommodate it. Why are you doing this? I asked, overwhelmed by his investment in me. You barely know me. I told you, I see potential. He looked at me seriously. I also see someone running from something painful. I won't pry into your past, but I will invest in your future. Don't waste this chance, Paige. I enrolled in online business courses that week, studied after Cameron went to sleep. Slowly, painfully, I began building credentials I'd abandoned when I fled. For 2 years, I worked for Wallace and learned everything he could teach me. I watched him build deals, navigate city politics, transform vacant lots into profitable properties. I absorbed knowledge like a sponge, asking questions, taking notes, proving myself indispensable. Cameron thrived too. He was bright and funny and curious, asking endless questions about everything. He called Wallace Mr. Wally and would visit the office sometimes, charming everyone with his gap-toothed smile. This is a good life, I thought sometimes. Not the life I'd imagined, but good. Safe. Mine. Then Wallace died. Heart attack in his office on a Tuesday afternoon. I found him slumped over his desk, already gone. The paramedic said it was massive and instant, that he didn't suffer, but I suffered. I had lost the man who saved my life, who believed in me when I had nothing. His funeral was packed with business associates and city officials. I stood in the back, crying for the father figure I'd found too late and lost too soon. A week later, his lawyer called me into his office. Paige, Wallace left you something in his will. I can't imagine what. He'd already given me so much. The lawyer slid papers across his desk. $200,000 and a 10% stake in Merrick Development. He also left instructions that you be offered a position on the board of directors. I stared at the papers, unable to process. Why would he do this? He left a letter for you. The lawyer handed me an envelope. Inside, in Wallace's precise handwriting, Paige, you've been the daughter I never had. Use this money to build something that can't be taken from you. Finish your education. Invest in yourself. And remember, the best revenge against people who underestimated you is proving them catastrophically wrong. You have more potential than you realize. Don't let fear stop you from becoming everything you're meant to be. With deep affection, Wallace. I cried in that lawyer's office, overwhelmed by grief and gratitude. The money and board position changed my trajectory completely. I used it to finish my MBA through accelerated programs. I leveraged my board position to learn from developers who had built empires. I I worked obsessively, driven by the need to honor Wallace's faith in me and to build security for Cameron that nobody could threaten. By the time Cameron turned 4, I had transformed into someone unrecognizable from the terrified pregnant girl on that bus. I was Paige Cross, senior partner at Merrick Development, overseeing projects worth hundreds of millions. We lived in a beautiful house in Westport's historic district. Cameron attended a good preschool. We had stability and safety and a life built on my terms. Entire weeks passed without me thinking about Trenton Shaw. The past felt safely distant, buried under years of new memories and hard-won success. I had survived him. More than survived, I had thrived despite him. I had won. Or so I thought, until the morning my assistant placed a schedule update on my desk and I saw a name that made 4 years of carefully constructed peace shatter like glass. Felicity Shaw. 2 p.m. appointment, referred by the Kensington family regarding a significant residential development project. My hands shook as I held the paper. Felicity Shaw, Trenton's wife, the woman he had chosen over me and Cameron, the person whose family's money had been more important than our child's existence. She was coming to my office in 4 hours. I sat frozen, trying to process implications that cascaded through my mind like dominoes. Did she know about me? About Cameron? Was this some kind of confrontation, orchestrated by Trenton? Or was it coincidence, the universe's twisted sense of irony bringing us together? My assistant knocked. "Miss Cross, do you want me to confirm the appointment?" I had 3 options: cancel and look unprofessional, send a junior partner and miss the opportunity, or face the woman whose life I'd envied for 4 years. Confirm it, I heard myself say, and clear my schedule for the afternoon. This might run long. After she left, I pulled up Felicity Shaw online. Society photos showed a stunning woman at charity galas, elegant and poised. Articles about her family's venture capital empire. Her wedding announcement to Trenton Shaw 4 years ago, the photo showing them both smiling for cameras. I studied her face in those pictures, looking for clues about what kind of person she was. She looked happy in the wedding photos, but there was something in her eyes. A distance, maybe, or just the neutral expression of someone performing for cameras. In more recent photos, that distance had grown. She smiled at charity events, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. She stood next to Trenton with careful space between their bodies. In one image from 6 months ago, I caught her looking at him when he wasn't, watching, and her expression held something that looked like resignation. Not a happy marriage, I realized. Whatever Trenton had gained by choosing her, it hadn't brought him joy. The thought should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt sad. At exactly 2 p.m., my assistant escorted Felicity Shaw into my office. She was even more stunning in person, tall and elegant in a cream suit that probably cost more than I used to make in a month. But up close, I could see the exhaustion around her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the carefully maintained smile of someone performing contentment. "Miss Cross, thank you so much for seeing me." Her handshake was firm and professional. "The Kensington spoke so highly of your firm's work on their waterfront project. I'm hoping you can help me with something similar. I'm happy to discuss possibilities." I gestured to the seating area, keeping my voice professionally neutral. "What kind of project did you have in mind?" Felicity settled into the leather chair, but her hands twisted together in her lap. "I want to develop a women's shelter, a comprehensive facility with residential space, childcare, job training, legal services, somewhere women escaping dangerous situations can rebuild their lives with dignity and support." Of all the projects I'd anticipated, this wasn't one. That's an ambitious and admirable goal. What inspired this particular focus? Something flickered across her face. Pain, quickly masked. Let's just say I've become aware of how many women find themselves trapped in situations not of their making, and how few resources exist to help them escape. I studied her carefully. A project like this would require significant funding. Are you prepared for the financial commitment? I have access to a substantial trust fund from my grandmother. The way she emphasized it was deliberate. Money that's entirely mine, separate from my husband's business interests. I want to use it for something that matters, separate from my husband. The phrase hung between us, loaded with meaning I couldn't quite interpret. We spent the next hour discussing logistics, property requirements, zoning considerations, architectural needs. Felicity was intelligent and well-prepared, asking questions that demonstrated genuine understanding. Despite everything, despite who she was and what she represented, I found myself liking her, which felt like a betrayal of my own anger. As our meeting drew toward conclusion, Felicity did something unexpected. She became vulnerable. I should be transparent about something. She met my eyes directly. This project is important to me personally because I'm planning to leave my husband. The shelter represents the life I want to build after my divorce, using my resources to help women who don't have the financial security I've been privileged to possess. The confession landed like a stone. "I'm sorry," I said automatically, then wondered why I was apologizing. "Don't be." Felicity's smile was bitter. "I'm not. I married Trenton Shaw for all the wrong reasons. Family pressure, business strategy, the delusion that partnership and love were the same thing. I've spent 4 years in a beautiful prison, and I'm finally ready to escape." Hearing Trenton's name spoken aloud in my office made my chest constrict. I gripped my chair arms to steady myself. Felicity didn't notice my reaction. She was looking out my window at the city below. I told myself I could live without love, that building empires together was enough. But it's not. She turned back to me. "Have you ever felt trapped by choices you made when you were too young to understand their cost?" "Yes." The word came out before I could stop it. "I have." "Then you understand why this shelter matters, why I need to build something meaningful from the wreckage of my mistakes." "I do, and I meant it. I'll draw up a proposal for your project. Give me a week to research properties and develop preliminary plans." Felicity's smile was genuine this time. "Thank you, Paige. May I call you Paige?" "Of course. And please, call me Felicity." She gathered her things. "I have a feeling we're going to work well together." After she left, I sat in my office as afternoon light slanted through the windows. My hands were still shaking. Felicity Shaw, the woman who had everything I'd lost, was unhappy and planning to leave Trenton. The marriage he'd destroyed my life to protect was ending anyway. The irony was breathtaking. He had threatened my family, forced me into exile, denied his son's existence, all to preserve a union that was already hollow. All that cruelty for nothing. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt exhausted. My phone buzzed. A text from Cameron's preschool. "Early dismissal today due to staff training. Can you pick up by 3 p.m.? I grabbed my keys and headed out, leaving behind papers and proposals, and the complicated reality that Trenton Shaw's wife had just hired me. Cameron was waiting in his classroom, playing with blocks, his dark hair falling over his eyes. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Mama, you're early." "I am, baby." I scooped him into a hug, breathing in his little boy scent of crayons and soap. "I thought we could go to the park." At the park, I pushed him on the swings and watched him climb the play structure with fearless energy. Other parents chatted on benches, and I recognized a few from school events. Normal people with normal lives, uncomplete by secrets that could detonate at any moment. "Mama," Cameron called from the top of the slide. "Watch me." "I'm watching, baby." He slid down with his arms raised, laughing. When he reached the bottom, he ran to me. Did you see how fast I went?" "I saw." "You were amazing." He hugged my legs. "You're the best, Mama. And you're the best son." I kissed the top of his head, feeling the weight of everything I'd sacrificed and survived pressing down on me. That night, after Cameron was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and did something I'd avoided for 4 years. I searched for Trenton Shaw. The articles painted a picture of success. His company had gone public, making him a billionaire on paper. But there were other stories buried in business journals. Reports of aggressive expansion that backfired, risky investments in cryptocurrency that crashed spectacularly, whispers of financial instability hidden behind facades of wealth. Trenton Shaw's empire was cracking. The foundation he'd built on ruthlessness and cruelty was proving less stable than he'd believed. I pulled up a recent photo from a charity gala. Trenton and Felicity posed together in formal wear, looking like the perfect power couple. But now I could see what I'd missed before. The distance between their bodies. Felicity's smile that didn't reach her eyes. Trenton's hand on her waist that looked possessive rather than affectionate. He had gotten everything he wanted 4 years ago, and it had made him miserable. I closed my laptop and went to check on Cameron one more time. He was sprawled across his bed, one arm hanging off the side, his favorite stuffed dinosaur clutched against his chest. The sight of him sleeping peacefully filled me with fierce protective love. Trenton didn't know this child existed, didn't know he had a son who was brilliant and kind and funny, Didn't know what he'd given up when he chose money over family, and I was going to keep it that way. Over the following weeks, I worked on Felicity's shelter proposal while simultaneously working with Felicity herself. We met several times to review plans, and each meeting felt like walking through a minefield where only I could see the explosives. She talked about her marriage with increasing openness, about Trenton's obsessive work habits, about how they lived in the same penthouse but existed in separate worlds, about her growing certainty that leaving was the right choice. "He's having an affair," she told me over coffee at our third meeting. "Has been for at least a year, probably longer. I don't even care anymore." She stirred her latte absently. "That's how I know it's time to leave. When you stop caring that your husband is sleeping with someone else." "I'm sorry." The words felt hollow. "I'm not." Finding out about his affairs was liberating. It meant I could stop trying to make something work that was broken from the beginning. She looked up at me. "You're divorced?" I lied smoothly. "Widowed. When Cameron was a baby." "God, I'm so sorry. How awful." It was hard, also true, but we survived. We built a good life. "You did more than survive." Felicity gestured around my office. "You built something extraordinary." "So will you," I said, and meant it. Our friendship was growing genuine, which made my secret feel heavier with each passing day. I liked Felicity, respected her intelligence and her determination to escape an unhappy marriage, found myself wanting to help her build her shelter and her new life. But I was lying to her with every conversation, lying by omission about who I was and what I represented, lying about the little boy she'd met briefly at my office, charming her with his questions about her shoes. The collision came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Cameron was supposed to be at preschool, but there was a staff training day I'd forgotten. My usual backup childcare fell through, so I brought him to my office, setting up a small table in the corner with coloring books and his favorite dinosaur toys. "He's so well behaved," my assistant commented, charmed by his concentration. "He's a good kid," I agreed, my heart swelling with pride. Felicity wasn't scheduled to visit that day, but she called an hour before noon, asking if she could stop by to review updated architectural plans. I should have said no, should have rescheduled, but the plans were ready and I wanted to move the project forward. "Of course," I said. "Come by around 1. I didn't think about how Cameron being there might complicate things, didn't consider the risk. I was focused on shelter designs and zoning requirements, on being professional and competent. Felicity arrived precisely at 1, bringing chocolate chip cookies for Cameron. "Extra chips, soft, not crunchy," she announced, handing him the bag. As promised. His face lit up. "Thank you. You remembered. I always keep my promises to important people." She smiled at him with genuine warmth, and I saw how good she was with children. How she would have been a wonderful mother if Trenton hadn't declared children off limits. We spread the architectural plans across my conference table, discussing layouts and design elements. Cameron played quietly in the corner, occasionally interjecting observations that made us both laugh. "Why does the building have so many windows?" he asked, studying the elevations. "So it doesn't feel like a prison," Felicity explained. "So the people staying there can see sky and feel less trapped." "That's nice." Cameron nodded seriously. "My mama says trapped is a bad feeling. Your mama is very smart." The meeting was going well. The plans were solid. Felicity was pleased. We were making real progress. Then Cameron's drawing slipped off his table and fluttered toward the floor. I bent to pick it up and my purse, hanging on my chair, tipped over. Contents spilled across the polished floor. Wallet, keys, lip balm, receipts, and tucked inside my wallet, a photograph I'd kept hidden for 4 years. An ultrasound image dated 4 months before Cameron's birth. I didn't notice at first. I was gathering scattered items, apologizing for the mess. But Felicity saw it, picked up the ultrasound photo with curious fingers. "What a sweet thing to keep," she said, then actually looked at the date printed at the top. Her face changed. "This is from 4 years ago?" My blood turned to ice. Time slowed to a crawl. Felicity looked at the photo, at Cameron in the corner, back at the photo. I could see her doing the math in real time, see the pieces clicking together in her sharp mind. "How old is Cameron?" Her voice had gone strange. My mouth was dry. "He just turned 4. The silence stretched like taffy, elastic and painful. Felicity's phone rang on the table between us, shattering the tension. The name on the screen glowed like an accusation. "Trenton." Both of us stared at it. The world narrowed to that single name, that connection between the three of us that was about to be exposed. Felicity picked up the phone with shaking hands. And that's when everything exploded. "I need you to answer a question," Felicity said into the phone, her eyes never leaving my face. "And I need the truth. 4 years ago, were you having an affair?" I could hear Trenton's voice through the speaker, cautious and measured. "That's ancient history, Felicity. Why are you asking about this now? Was she pregnant?" The pause that followed felt like it lasted a year. My design team sat frozen at the conference table, suddenly aware they were witnessing something intensely personal. Cameron looked up from his toys, sensing the tension in the room. "It was handled," Trenton finally said, his voice cold and businesslike. "She took care of it. It's not relevant to our marriage." Felicity's laugh was bitter and broken, a sound that made my chest ache. "Her name is Paige, isn't it? Paige Brennan. And she didn't take care of it. She had your son. He's 4 years old, Trenton. He's sitting in this office right now, playing with dinosaurs and eating the cookies I brought him." The silence on the other end was deafening. Absolute. The kind of silence that comes when someone's entire world tilts sideways. "That's impossible," Trenton said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "She took the money. She agreed to handle it. I assumed she went through with the procedure and relocated." "You assumed." Felicity's voice was acid. "You didn't actually verify, did you? You just handed her cash and threats and assumed your problem disappeared." "But she didn't disappear, Trenton. She's been here the entire time, 3 states away, building a life you know nothing about. And your son looks exactly like you. Felicity, where are you? I need to come there. I need to see this for myself." "No. You need to think about what you've done, about the choices you made and the lives you destroyed because you were too cowardly to face consequences." She hung up without waiting for his response. The conference room was suffocating in its silence. My design team looked at each other uncertainly, clearly wanting to escape, but not knowing if they should move. Cameron had stopped playing, his small face worried. "Everyone out." Felicity's voice was calm but absolute. "Give us the room, please." My team fled gratefully, gathering laptops and notebooks, not meeting my eyes as they hurried toward the door. Within 30 seconds, it was just Felicity, Cameron, and me. Cameron slid off his chair and came to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. "Mama? Why is everyone acting weird?" I pulled him close, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "It's okay, baby. Grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." Felicity sat down heavily in one of the conference chairs. She was still holding the ultrasound photo, staring at it like it might contain answers to questions she hadn't known to ask. When she finally looked up at me, her expression wasn't angry. It was devastated. "How long have you known who I am?" she asked quietly. "Since the moment you walked into my office 5 weeks ago." My voice came out rough. "I saw your name on my assistant's schedule and almost canceled the meeting. But you didn't." "No." I took a shaky breath. I needed to see what kind of person Trenton chose over us. I needed to understand what had been worth destroying my life to obtain. Felicity flinched like I'd struck her. "I didn't know you existed. I didn't know about any of this. He told me 4 years ago that he'd had an affair, that the woman became pregnant, that she'd terminated the pregnancy and moved away. He made it sound resolved and finished. He wanted it resolved and finished." I sat down across from her, keeping Cameron close. "He gave me $75,000 and told me to get an abortion. When I said I couldn't, he threatened my family, my father's construction business, my sister's medical school scholarship, everyone I loved." Felicity's hand went to her mouth. "Oh God." I ran. I disappeared completely so he'd have no reason to follow through on his threats. Changed my name, moved across the country, rebuilt my entire life from nothing so my family would be safe and my son could exist. And I hired you. Felicity looked like she might be sick. I hired the woman my husband. Destroyed. I've been sitting here for weeks talking about my marriage problems to the person who has every reason to hate me. "I don't hate you," I said, surprised to find it was true. "You're as much a victim of Trenton's choices as I am, just in different ways." Cameron tugged on my sleeve. "Mama, who is this lady really?" "This is Felicity, sweetheart. She's someone very important, someone who knew your father before you were born." His eyes went wide. "She knows my daddy?" Felicity made a choked sound. "Yes," she whispered. "I know your father." I'm married to him. Cameron processed this with the straightforward logic of a 4-year-old. But you're nice. He's never nice to us. What do you mean, honey? Felicity leaned forward slightly. Mama says my daddy couldn't be in my life because he made big mistakes. That he was scared, and that scared people sometimes hurt others. Cameron's face was serious. But Mama says everybody deserves chances to be better, even people who were mean before. The wisdom coming from my 4-year-old son made both Felicity and me tear up. I pulled Cameron onto my lap. Why don't you go color at your table for a few minutes, okay? The grown-ups need to talk. Will the nice cookie lady be sad? I might be sad for a little while, Felicity told him gently. But that's not because of you. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay. He slid off my lap and returned to his corner, but I could tell he was listening while pretending to color. Felicity wiped her eyes. I need you to understand something, Paige. I didn't know. If I had known what he did to you, if I had any idea that he'd threatened you and forced you into hiding while pregnant, I never would have married him. I was told a completely different story. I believe you. And I did. Her pain was too raw to be performance. He's going to come here. Felicity looked at her phone. He knows where my meetings are. He'll show up demanding to see Cameron. Panic flared in my chest. He can't just appear in my son's life after 4 years of not caring whether he existed. He doesn't get to decide suddenly that he wants to be a father. Legally, he might have rights. Felicity's voice was gentle but realistic. If he establishes paternity, he could demand visitation or even custody. Over my dead body. The ferocity in my voice surprised even me. I have documented proof of his threats. I have evidence that he forced me into hiding. No court would give him custody. Maybe not custody, but supervised visitation might be different. Felicity ran her hands through her hair. Look, I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to prepare you for what might happen. Why are you helping me? I asked. He's your husband. You should hate me. He's my soon-to-be ex-husband. And I don't hate you because you're not the villain here. She met my eyes. Trenton is. He destroyed you. He lied to me. And he denied that little boy a father. I'm not protecting him anymore. Before I could respond, my office phone rang. My assistant's voice came through the speaker, nervous and apologetic. Miss Cross, there's a man here demanding to see you. He says it's urgent and he won't leave. Security is asking if they should remove him. Felicity and I exchanged looks. That was fast, she said. Tell security to give me 5 minutes. I kept my voice steady. I'll come to reception. I turned to Cameron. Baby, I need you to stay here with Miss Felicity for a few minutes. Can you do that? Is something wrong? No, sweetheart. I just need to handle something. I'll be right back. I'll stay with him, Felicity promised. We'll be fine. Walking to reception felt like walking toward an execution. My legs were steady, but my hands shook. After 4 years of distance, I was about to face Trenton Shaw again, the man who had tried to pay me to erase our child, the man who had threatened everyone I loved, the man I had once believed I would spend my life with. He stood in my elegant reception area, looking completely out of place despite his expensive suit, older than I remembered, stress carved into the lines around his eyes and mouth. When he saw me, his face went through a series of expressions. Shock, recognition, something that might have been regret. Paige. My name came out like he'd been punched. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know you were here, working here, that you'd built all this. You didn't know because you never looked. I kept my voice low and controlled. You assumed I took your blood money and disappeared exactly as ordered. You never wondered whether I'd actually gone through with the abortion you demanded. You just moved on with your life and forgot I existed. That's not true. I thought about you. I tried to find you those first few weeks. But you stopped looking when it became inconvenient. When it threatened your perfect plan. I crossed my arms. Why are you here, Trenton? Felicity called me. Told me about Cameron. His voice cracked on our son's name. Is it true? Did you really have my baby? I had my baby. You gave up any claim to him when you threatened my family and told me to fix my mistake. Paige, I was terrified. I was 29 years old trying to take my company public. I panicked and made choices I've regretted every day since. Regret is easy. I stepped closer, anger overriding fear. Regret costs you nothing, Trenton. It's just a feeling you experience privately while the people you hurt continue dealing with the actual consequences of your choices. Do you want to know what was hard? Giving birth alone in a hospital where nobody knew my real name. Working night shifts while pregnant and terrified. Wondering every single day if you would follow through on your threats and destroy my father's business or my sister's future. That was hard. Your regret is comfortable. You're right. He held up his hands in surrender. You're absolutely right. I was a coward who chose my career over everything else. But Paige, I want to meet him. I want to know my son. The laugh that escaped me was sharp and humorless. Now you want to be a father? After 4 years of not caring? What changed, Trenton? Did Felicity filing for divorce make you suddenly realize you're alone? Did your empire cracking finally teach you that money doesn't replace human connection? His face told me I'd struck close to truth. Both. All of it. Everything is falling apart, and I'm realizing too late what actually mattered. That's not my problem. I turned to walk away. Please. The desperation in his voice stopped me. Please, just let me see him. 5 minutes. I won't try to touch him or talk to him if you don't want me to. I just need to see that he's real. Something in his broken tone made me hesitate. Not forgiveness, not trust, but recognition that Cameron might someday ask whether I'd prevented his father from wanting to know him. 5 minutes, I said finally. But I control everything. You don't speak unless I give permission. You don't approach him. You don't make promises or claims. You just see him from a distance. Understand? Yes. Thank you. Yes. I led him back to my office, my heart pounding. Felicity looked up when we entered, her expression cooling when she saw Trenton. Cameron was still at his coloring table, tongue sticking out in concentration. Trenton stopped breathing. I watched him take in every detail of our son, the dark hair that matched his own, the shape of his face, the way he held his crayon. Cameron looked up, sensing new presence, and Trenton made a sound like he'd been struck. The resemblance was undeniable. Looking at them both, anyone would know instantly they were father and son. Same bone structure, same eyes, same expression of focused attention. Cameron studied Trenton with frank curiosity. Hi, who are you? I moved quickly to Cameron's side before Trenton could answer. This is someone Mama used to know a long time ago. He wanted to say hello. Oh. Cameron returned to his coloring, already losing interest in the strange man. But Trenton couldn't look away. He stood frozen, drinking in the sight of his son like a man dying of thirst. Tears ran down his face, unchecked. How old is he? Trenton whispered. 4. Just turned 4 in March. My hand rested on Cameron's shoulder. Protective. What's his name? Cameron Cross. Cross, not Shaw. The observation held pain and acceptance. You gave him your name. I gave him my grandmother's name. A clean identity with no connection to you. That's fair. Trenton wiped his eyes. He's beautiful, Paige. Perfect. He is. And he's had a good life without you in it. A life built on love and stability and honesty. I won't let you disrupt that because you're suddenly feeling sentimental about fatherhood. I'm not asking to disrupt anything. Trenton's eyes finally left Cameron and found mine. I'm asking for a chance to be part of his life in whatever way you decide is appropriate. I know I don't deserve it. I know I gave up any right to him 4 years ago. But I'm asking anyway because he's my son and I've already missed so much. You made your choice. Now live with it. Mama? Cameron looked up at me. Why is that man crying? Because grown-ups sometimes have big feelings about complicated things. I knelt down to Cameron's level. Are you doing okay, sweetheart? I'm good. He showed me his drawing. Look, I made the shelter Miss Felicity is building. It has lots of windows so people won't feel trapped. That's beautiful, baby. You're such a good artist. Trenton watched this exchange with naked longing on his face. When Cameron glanced at him again, Trenton managed a shaky smile. Your drawing is really good. Thank you. Cameron's manners were impeccable. Mama says I should always thank people who give compliments. Your mama is teaching you well. Are you sad? The question was typical Cameron, direct and empathetic beyond his years. Trenton crouched down, careful to maintain the distance I'd demanded. Yeah, buddy. I'm pretty sad. But not because of anything you did, because of mistakes I made a long time ago. Everybody makes mistakes. Cameron's wisdom made Felicity cover her mouth to muffle a sob. You just have to try better next time. You're a very smart kid. You know that? Mama tells me that. Cameron smiled proudly. Your time's up. I stood, placing myself between Trenton and Cameron. You've seen him. Now you need to leave. Trenton rose slowly, his eyes lingering on Cameron. Thank you for letting me see him. I mean that. This doesn't mean anything changed, I warned. This doesn't give you rights or access. I'm still deciding what's best for my son. I understand. But Paige, please think about it. Please consider letting me be part of his life somehow. I'll do anything you ask. Therapy, supervised visits, whatever boundaries you need. I just want a chance to know him. I'll think about it. That's all I'm promising. After Trenton left, Felicity and I sat in stunned silence while Cameron colored, oblivious to the earthquake that had just restructured all our lives. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. Your 3:30 is here. Should I reschedule? Reschedule everything for today, I texted back. Family emergency. Some emergency, Felicity said quietly. Your secret is out. My marriage is definitely ending. And a 4-year-old just gave his father better advice than any therapist could. Cameron has a way of cutting through complexity. I watched my son, my heart aching. I don't know what to do, Felicity. Part of me wants to keep Trenton far away forever. But another part wonders if I have the right to deny Cameron a relationship with his father. Those are both valid feelings. Felicity moved to sit beside me. Can I ask you something? Of course. What do you need? Not what's best for Cameron or what Trenton wants. What do you need to feel safe and whole? The question made tears spring to my eyes. I don't know. I've spent 4 years building walls to protect us. I don't know how to let them down even if I wanted to. Then don't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Felicity took my hand. But maybe there's a middle ground where Cameron gets to know his father in controlled ways that don't threaten your safety, where you maintain all the power and Trenton has to earn every single minute of access. You're being surprisingly generous about this. He's still your husband. Not for long. And honestly, learning what he did to you makes leaving him easier. Felicity's voice hardened. I knew he was ruthless in business. I didn't know he was cruel to vulnerable women. That's different. We sat together while Cameron hummed and colored, creating his vision of a shelter that would help people trapped in situations not of their making. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I want to keep working on the shelter project, Felicity said eventually. If you're willing. I understand if this changes things between us professionally. It doesn't. The shelter matters regardless of our personal complications. I squeezed her hand. Besides, I think I might need you to help me navigate what comes next. You know Trenton in ways I never did, and you know him in ways I never wanted to. She smiled sadly. We're bound together by one man's terrible choices. We might as well support each other through the aftermath. That night, after Cameron was asleep, I sat in my kitchen with a glass of wine I didn't drink and tried to process the day. My secret was exposed. Trenton knew about Cameron. Felicity knew I'd lied by omission for weeks. Everything I'd built on careful distance and buried truth had exploded. My phone rang, Trenton's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. What do you want? No greeting, no warmth. To apologize properly. His voice was rough. I know my apologies mean nothing after what I did, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry, Paige. I'm profoundly, desperately sorry for how I treated you, for the threats, for forcing you into hiding, for 4 years of not knowing my son existed. Sorry doesn't undo damage, but I appreciate you saying it. Felicity told me you have documented proof of my threats, that you could use it against me legally if I try to force visitation. I do. Every text, every email, notes from our conversations. I was careful. I'm not going to fight you in court. His words surprised me. I'm not going to try to use my money or connections to force my way into Cameron's life. If you decide I don't deserve access, I'll accept that. Why? Because you were right earlier. I made my choice 4 years ago. Actions have consequences. If the consequence is losing my son permanently, that's justice. I don't want Cameron to be a consequence. I stared at the ceiling. I want him to have the best possible life. I'm just trying to figure out if that includes you. What would it take? For you to consider letting me be part of his life? The question hung between us. I thought about it seriously, pushing past anger to what actually mattered. Therapy. Extensive therapy to address whatever made you capable of threatening a pregnant woman. Parenting classes, proof over time that you've changed, and absolute adherence to whatever boundaries I set. No pushing. No trying to buy your way in with gifts. No undermining my authority as his mother. Done. All of it. I'll start therapy this week. And Trenton, I need you to understand something. My voice was steel. Cameron is happy. He's well adjusted. He has a good life. If I let you in and you hurt him or disappoint him or prove unreliable, I will cut you off permanently. This isn't about you getting what you want. It's about my son getting what he deserves. I understand. I won't let him down. We'll see. I'm not promising anything yet. I'm just saying I'll think about it. After we hung up, I checked on Cameron one more time. He was sprawled across his bed, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, completely at peace. He didn't know his world had just shifted on its axis. Didn't know his father had suddenly appeared after years of absence. Didn't know the complicated decisions his mother was wrestling with. I kissed his forehead gently. I'll protect you, I whispered. Always. No matter what. The next few weeks were surreal. Felicity filed for divorce officially, and the media had a field day. Rumors swirled about affairs and business troubles, and the dissolution of a power marriage. Felicity handled it with grace, releasing a simple statement about growing apart and wishing each other well. Privately, she told me different. I cited irreconcilable differences and emotional abandonment. My lawyers are making it very clear that I know about his pattern of affairs and his treatment of you. He's not fighting anything. He just wants it over quietly. What about the shelter project? Still moving forward. My money is mine regardless of the divorce. She smiled. Actually, this makes it easier. I can make decisions without worrying about how they'll affect his business reputation. We met regularly to review architectural plans and property options. Our working relationship evolved into genuine friendship, both of us recognizing we'd been casualties of the same. Man's ambition. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. The wife and the mistress, now allies and business partners. Trenton, true to his word, started therapy and parenting classes. He sent me certificates of completion without asking for praise or credit. Just quiet proof he was doing the work. 6 weeks after the revelation, I made a decision that terrified me. I agreed to let Trenton meet Cameron officially. Not as a stranger in my office, but as his father. With conditions. The meeting would be in a public park. Felicity would attend as a neutral support. 1 hour maximum. Cameron would be told the truth in age-appropriate terms beforehand, and if Cameron showed any signs of discomfort, the meeting would end immediately. I spent the night before the meeting rehearsing how to tell Cameron about his father. I'd always known this conversation would come eventually, but I'd imagined it happening when he was older, better able to understand complexity. Instead, I sat him down after breakfast and said, "Cameron, honey, I need to talk to you about something important." "Okay, Mama." He climbed onto the couch beside me, trusting and open. "You know how you've asked sometimes about your daddy?" His eyes went wide. "Is he coming? Is he going to see me?" "Yes. If you want to meet him, he'd like to see you tomorrow." "Why hasn't he seen me before?" The question held no accusation, just curiosity. "Because when you were going to be born, your daddy was very scared. He made bad choices because of that fear. He wasn't ready to be a good father yet." "Is he ready now?" "I don't know yet, baby. That's what we're going to find out. But I want you to know that whatever happens, you're loved. I love you more than anything in the world. And nothing about meeting your daddy will change that. Will you be there? The whole time? I'm not going anywhere." "Okay." Cameron thought about it seriously. "Can I bring my dinosaur? In case I get nervous?" "Of course you can." The next morning I drove to the park with Cameron beside me, chattering about dinosaurs and completely unaware of how nervous I was. Felicity met us at the entrance, holding the promised cookies. Extra chips, soft, not crunchy. "You're the best cookie lady ever," Cameron announced, "and you're the best cookie critic." She ruffled his hair. Trenton was already there, sitting on a bench near the playground looking terrified. When he saw us approaching, he stood so quickly he almost stumbled. I could see the effort it took for him to stay in place, to not rush toward Cameron. "Cameron," I said gently, "this is Trenton. He's your father." Cameron studied Trenton with the frank assessment of childhood. "You look like me." The observation, so simple and direct, made Trenton's eyes fill. "I think you look like me, actually. But yes, we look similar. Mama says you were scared before. Are you still scared? Yes, Trenton admitted, but different scared now. Before I was scared of responsibility. Now I'm scared of disappointing you. Cameron nodded like this made sense. Everybody gets scared. That's okay. You just have to be brave anyway. You're very wise for 4 years old. Mama says I'm an old soul. Whatever that means. If you're emotionally invested in Cameron's journey and want to see how this family heals, hit that like button. And please, drop a comment. What would you do in Paige's position? Would you give Trenton this chance? Your engagement helps this channel grow, and I'm so grateful for each of you. Now let's see what happens next. They talked for 45 minutes. Trenton asked about Cameron's favorite things. Dinosaurs, obviously. His preschool. His friends. His drawings. Cameron answered with his characteristic openness, not yet old enough to guard himself. I watched from a nearby bench with Felicity, ready to intervene if needed. But Cameron seemed comfortable, curious. He showed Trenton his stuffed dinosaur and explained its entire backstory. Trenton listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed genuine interest. Why weren't you there when I was born? Cameron asked eventually. Because I made really terrible choices, buddy. Choices that hurt your mom and hurt you. I was selfish and scared. Did you say sorry to Mama? I did. But sorry doesn't fix everything. Mama says sorry is just the start. You have to also do better. Your mama is very smart. Trenton glanced at me. The smartest person I know. When it was time to leave, Cameron surprised us all by hugging Trenton spontaneously. Bye, Daddy. You can visit again if Mama says it's okay. Trenton wrapped his arms around our son and cried. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for being kind to me even though I don't deserve it. After we left, I drove home in silence while Cameron hummed in the back seat. Mama? He said eventually. I like my daddy. He's nice now. I'm glad, baby. My voice caught. I'm really glad. Are you happy or sad? Both. Sometimes grown-ups feel lots of things at the same time. That sounds confusing. It really is, I agreed. Over the following months, supervised visits became a routine. Trenton showed up. Consistently, never late, never canceling. He brought small gifts that were thoughtful rather than extravagant. Books about dinosaurs, art supplies, a soccer ball. He didn't try to compete with me or undermine my authority. He just showed up and tried to be present. Felicity's divorce finalized. She threw a small celebration, inviting me and Cameron. We're free, she announced, raising a glass of champagne. From marriages that were prisons and men who didn't deserve us. To freedom, I agreed. Cameron, sipping apple juice from a champagne flute, added seriously. To being brave and making good choices. Both women laughed and cried, toasting a 4-year-old's wisdom. The shelter project broke ground in October. All of us attended the ceremony. Paige, Felicity, Trenton keeping respectful distance, and Cameron in a tiny hard hat that was far too big. News coverage focused on the unusual partnership between Felicity and me. 2. Women connected by complicated history, choosing collaboration over conflict. This facility will provide comprehensive support to women escaping dangerous situations, Felicity told reporters. It represents hope and second chances, things everyone deserves regardless of their past. I stood beside her, adding, every woman who comes here will know she's worth fighting for, that her children deserve stability and safety, that her past doesn't define her future. Cameron, when asked by a reporter why the shelter mattered, said with perfect 4-year-old logic, because people need help sometimes and that's okay. My mama needed help once, and now she helps other people. That's how it works. The quote went viral. My phone exploded with messages from people touched by his simple wisdom. Trenton texted, he's extraordinary. Thank you for raising him to be kind and aware. You're welcome. But it wasn't for you. It was for him. I know. But I'm grateful anyway. 8 months into our tentative CO parenting arrangement, Trenton's lawyers contacted me about formalizing custody agreements. My heart sank, fearing he was going to fight for more than I'd offered. Instead, the proposed agreement was shockingly reasonable. Supervised visitation continuing indefinitely. No overnight visits unless both parents agree. Primary custody remaining with mother. Child support set at generous amounts that went directly into a college fund. All major decisions requiring my approval. This is fair, my lawyer said, reviewing the documents. More than fair. He's essentially agreeing to everything you wanted, because he knows if he pushes, he loses everything. I signed the papers, but privately, I wondered if maybe Trenton really had changed. If therapy and consequences had actually taught him something about accountability. The custody hearing was anticlimactic. Both of us appeared with our lawyers. The judge reviewed our agreement and Cameron's therapist's report. Your son is thriving. The therapist had testified. He's well adjusted, secure in his mother's care, and developing a healthy relationship with his father under the current supervised arrangement. I recommend formalizing exactly what they're already doing. The judge agreed, banging her gavel and making our arrangement official. Outside the courthouse, Trenton approached carefully. Thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it. You're right, you don't. But Cameron deserves a father who wants to know him. So we're doing this for him, not for you. I understand. His expression was serious. I want you to know I'm still in therapy, still working on understanding why I was capable of treating you the way I did. And Paige, I know apologies are inadequate, but I'm genuinely sorry for everything I put you through. Sorry doesn't undo 4 years of absence or erase what you threatened. I met his eyes, but I appreciate you doing the work anyway. Felicity joined us, and the three of us stood together awkwardly. The strangest triangle: former lovers, ex-spouses, co-parents, unlikely allies. Lunch, Felicity suggested. To celebrate our official weird family? We ended up at a family restaurant, the three of us and Cameron. People, probably, wondered about our dynamics. The boy who looked like the man. The two women who were clearly friends. The man who seemed like an outsider trying to fit in. Cameron, oblivious to complexity, chattered about his upcoming birthday party. Can we have dinosaurs? And can Daddy come? And Aunt Fliss? Aunt Fliss? I looked at Felicity. She grinned. He started calling me that last week. I like it. The party can have dinosaurs, I confirmed. And yes, Daddy and Aunt Fliss can come if they want. I want, Trenton said quietly. Wouldn't miss it, Felicity added. That birthday party, Cameron's 5th, was chaotic and joyful. Ruth came, delighted to see how far we'd come from the terrified girl who'd shown up at her boarding house. Joe from the diner brought a massive cake. Wallace's widow attended, hugging me and saying he would be so proud. And Trenton, Felicity, and I worked together to manage 15 screaming children high on sugar and excitement. At one point, Felicity and I stood watching Trenton help kids pin the tail on the dinosaur, and she said, "A year ago, if someone told me I'd be co-hosting a birthday party with my ex-husband and the woman he got pregnant, I would have called them insane." Life is weird, I agreed, but good weird, in this case. Yeah, good weird. The shelter opened a year and a half after Felicity first walked into my office. The Second Chance Center, we named it. The building was beautiful. Designed with input from survivors, it felt like a home rather than an institution. Residential space for 20 families. Comprehensive childcare, job training facilities, legal aid offices, therapy rooms, a garden where kids could play safely. At the opening ceremony, Felicity and I both spoke. I talked about women forced into impossible choices, about starting over with nothing, about the strength discovered through survival. Without mentioning my own story directly, everyone who knew understood. Every woman here will know she's worth fighting for, I said to assembled crowd. That her children deserve stability, that her past doesn't define her future, that second chances aren't just possible but deserved. Standing ovation made me cry. Cameron, now 5 and understanding more, squeezed my hand. You did good, Mama. Felicity's speech focused on using privilege for purpose, on recognizing that her own cage had been gilded but still a cage, about friendship between women changing everything. Paige taught me that strength looks like survival, she said, and that grace looks like rebuilding. This shelter represents what happens when we stop competing and start supporting, when we recognize that another woman's success doesn't diminish our own. After speeches, the first residents began moving in. Women with children, carrying garbage bags of belongings, looking terrified and hopeful. I greeted each one, offering welcome and encouragement, sharing carefully that I understood their fear, that starting over was possible. One woman, holding a toddler, asked quietly, "Does it get easier?" "Yes," I promised. "It gets easier, not right away, but piece by piece, you'll build something yours, something safe." She cried in gratitude. Trenton attended the opening, but stayed in the background. He'd made a substantial, anonymous donation to the shelter's operating fund, not for credit or praise, just genuine contribution. When I thanked him privately, he shrugged. It's the least I can do. Literally. After what I did to you, funding a shelter feels like bare minimum decency. Our relationship had settled into careful détente. Not friends, not enemies. CO parents who respected each other's boundaries while putting Cameron first. He attended Cameron's school events and doctor appointments. Sent consistent child support. Never missed a scheduled visit. But more than that, he'd become a genuine father. Learning Cameron's likes and dislikes. Reading the parenting books I recommended. Asking my advice on how to handle specific situations. Showing up even when it was inconvenient. You've changed, I admitted one afternoon while watching Cameron play soccer. Trenton and I stood on opposite sides of the field, but walked together afterward. You're not the man you were 5 years ago. Therapy helps. Losing everything helped more. He watched Cameron run toward us. When your empire collapses, you figure out pretty quickly what actually mattered. And I lost what actually mattered because I was too stupid and scared to recognize it. Do you regret marrying Felicity? He considered. I regret hurting her. But if I hadn't married her, I wouldn't have hit bottom. Wouldn't have been forced to face what I'd done. So maybe it needed to happen that way. Cameron reached us, sweaty and happy. Did you see my goal? We saw, buddy. Both of us said it simultaneously, then smiled at the coordination. That night, tucking Cameron into bed, he asked, Mama, are you and Daddy going to get married? No, sweetheart. We're not. We're friends now, and we both love you, but we're not going to be married. That's okay. He yawned. I like it how it is. I have you and Daddy and Aunt Fliss and Mr. Ruth and everyone. That's lots of family. It is lots of family. More than I ever imagined. Mama, one more question before sleep claimed him. Are you happy? Yes, baby. I really am. And I meant it. My life looked nothing like I'd planned 5 years ago. But it was good. Built on my terms, filled with people I'd chosen, meaningful in ways I couldn't have predicted. 3 years later, Cameron was 8 years old, and the shelter had expanded to 3 locations across the state. Hundreds of women and children helped. National recognition for our model of comprehensive support. Felicity and I traveled to conferences, speaking about our unusual partnership and the power of women supporting women. My personal life had also evolved. I'd met someone, a teacher at Cameron's school, kind and patient, and nothing like Trenton. We'd been dating for a year, taking things slowly because I still struggled with trust. But he was good with Cameron, respectful of my boundaries, supportive of my work. His name was Aaron, and when he proposed, it was simple and honest. No grand gestures. Just, I love you, and Cameron, I want to build a life with you both. If you're ready. I said yes. Trenton, when I told him, looked sad for a moment. Then genuine. I'm happy for you, Paige. You deserve someone who treats you well. Thank you. That means something. Will Cameron be in the wedding? If he wants to be. Cameron enthusiastically agreed to be ring bearer. The wedding was small and intimate. Family and close friends only. Felicity was there with her own partner, an architect she'd met through the shelter project. Ruth, now in her 80s, cried happy tears. Even Trenton attended, sitting in the back and watching the woman he'd destroyed build something beautiful with someone better. After the ceremony, Trenton approached carefully. Can I talk to you for a minute? We stepped outside, into evening air. What's up? I just wanted to say, I'm grateful for letting me be part of Cameron's life despite everything I did. For not poisoning him against me when you had every right to. For building something good from what I destroyed. You didn't destroy me, Trenton. I looked at the stars appearing above us. You tried to, but I rebuilt myself into someone you couldn't have imagined. Stronger and better than I would have been if you hadn't forced me to survive. Still, I'm grateful, and I hope Cameron knows how lucky he is to have you as his mother. He knows. I smiled. He tells me regularly. Good. That's good. We stood together in comfortable silence. So much history between us. So much pain and growth and complicated healing. We would never be friends. The wounds were too deep for that. But we were effective CO parents, united in love for our son. And maybe that was enough. Inside, through windows, I could see Cameron laughing with Aaron. My new husband lifting my son onto his shoulders. Felicity dancing with her partner, Ruth being charmed by my father, who'd traveled from across the country to attend, my family, complicated and blended and built from broken pieces, but family nonetheless. 5 more years passed. Cameron was 13, playing soccer competitively and getting straight A's. The Second Chance Center had expanded to 7 locations and helped thousands. Felicity and I had published a book about women supporting women, about transforming pain into purpose. I'd had 2 more children with Aaron, a daughter named Ruby and a son named James. Cameron was an amazing big brother, patient and protective. Trenton had consistent relationship with Cameron, attending games and school, events, but respecting that Aaron was Cameron's day-to-day father figure. At Cameron's 13th birthday party, all of us gathered again. Trenton and his new girlfriend, a therapist he'd met in his support group, Felicity and her wife, married 2 years now, Aaron's parents, who'd embraced my complicated history with grace, Ruth, somehow still going strong at 87, Cameron, opening presents, looked around at everyone and said, "I'm lucky. I know my family is weird, but I'm really lucky." "Weird is good," Felicity told him. "Normal is overrated." That night, after everyone left and the younger kids were asleep, Cameron came to find me in the kitchen where I was cleaning up. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always, baby." He wasn't a baby anymore, tall and lanky, voice changing, but still my boy. "Why didn't you ever tell me the whole story? About Dad, and what happened before I was born?" I sat down, gesturing for him to join me. "What do you know?" "Pieces. That he wasn't ready to be a dad. That you raised me alone for a while. That things were complicated. Do you want to know more? I think I'm old enough now." So, I told him, age appropriately, but honestly, about falling in love with someone who wasn't available, about the pregnancy and Trenton's reaction, about the threats and my decision to disappear, about rebuilding from nothing, about the unlikely friendship with Felicity and the complicated journey to where we were now. Cameron listened seriously. "So Dad was pretty terrible." He was. He made choices that hurt people because he was scared and selfish. But he changed. People can change if they do the work. Your father did the work. He went to therapy, took parenting classes, proved over years that he'd learned and grown. But change doesn't erase what happened. It just means he became better than he was. Are you still mad at him? Sometimes. But mostly I'm just grateful we all found our way to something good. You're happy, right? Really happy. I have you and Aaron and my siblings and Dad and Aunt Fliss and everyone. I'm good, Mom. Then that's what matters. We made something good from something bad. He hugged me. Thanks for telling me the truth. You deserved the truth. After he left, I sat alone in my quiet kitchen, thinking about the journey from that rainy night in Trenton's office to here. 15 years of survival and growth and complicated healing. I'd been destroyed and rebuilt myself into someone stronger. I'd made unlikely allies from potential enemies. I'd built an empire and a family and a life that mattered. The past would always be part of my story, but it didn't define my story. I'd taken Trenton's cruelty and transformed it into purpose, used Wallace's faith in me to build something meaningful, turned Felicity's friendship into lasting change. My phone buzzed. A text from one of the shelter directors. A woman just arrived with 3 kids. She's terrified but determined. Reminds me of how you described yourself 15 years ago. I smiled. Tell her she's going to make it. Tell her she's stronger than she knows. Within minutes, I received a response. She's crying. She wanted me to say thank you for building this place, for understanding. Some endings are really just beginnings in disguise, I typed back. And some families are built not from perfection, but from people brave enough to try again. I put down my phone and looked around my home. Toys scattered across the floor, photos covering the walls, artwork from all my children decorating the fridge, evidence of a chaotic, beautiful life built from ashes. Trenton had told me to get rid of it 15 years ago, that it would destroy everything. He'd been right about destruction, but wrong about what would be destroyed. His threats hadn't destroyed me. They'd destroyed his chance at knowing his son from birth. They'd destroyed his first marriage. They'd destroyed the illusion that power and money mattered more than human connection. But from that destruction came creation, a son who was kind and wise, a friendship that changed 2 women's lives, a shelter that had helped thousands, a family built on honesty and hard-won trust. Thank you for being part of this journey. This story reminds us that our worst moments don't define us, that pain can become purpose, that unlikely allies can become family, that people can change if they do the work, and that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is choose grace over bitterness. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment about your own journey of survival and rebuilding. Hit subscribe so you never miss these stories of transformation. What second chance would you take if you could? What pain could you transform into purpose? The answers might surprise you. Until next time, this is Dr. Phillips reminding you that twilight is just a space between darkness and dawn. And sometimes the most beautiful moments happen in that in-between space. When we're brave enough to let the light in, you are stronger than your worst moment. You are more than what was done to you. You are capable of building beauty from ashes. Never forget that. Love and light to you all. This is Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, signing off.